Welcome to this month's theme, which is colour. This week, the specialist theme is red. I'm going to have a go at showing you a few different reds within a painting. So let's have a look at that. I've already drawn it. We just need to start looking at the application of the different reds in the painting. I've drawn the basic shape of the apple out, and from the photo that I'll be putting up, it has all the elements that we need with regards to the different types of red. The background one here has a very orangey yellow feel to the red. The foreground apple has a more purpley red, and you'll see that in the photograph. So we'll try and mimic that in the painting that we do. So the first thing that we need to do is get some background yellow in, and I'm going to do that now. Here is my palette that I'm going to use. We've got some light yellows ranging right through to orange and the reds that we need, and some more what you would call burgundy type reds, and even a purple there. Now we'll add that as a little bit of shading to the picture to give it a bit more of a three-dimensional feel. So that's the palette. I'm leaving this background area white, but I want to be painting this one and this one. So I'm going to flood that area with water now. You may not necessarily see this, but it will get pretty much flooded. And this is prior to it being added with some yellow background colour. So that's that there. And I'm being fairly generous with this water. Make sure everywhere is reasonably evenly distributed. There we go. And now it's time to put a yellow colour in. Now it's a very light yellow, that, so I'm going to go for some lemon. I'm sorry, but it's just over the it's just where I'm having to film that I have to cross over to the palette, and that gets in the way of the rest of the. It's going to be the lightest of light bits in it, down that way, and then even lighter I'm dipping some more water in, because this foreground one has a bit less yellow in it. It's more dominant with the purplier colours, so I don't want that affecting it. In fact, I'm going to make sure that that's almost non-existent, but just enough to hint at the idea that it's got a bit of yellow in it. This one you can be a lot more aggressive with the yellow, and in fact at this stage as well, while I'm doing this, I'm going to get some orange and do that bit. I'm going to try and stay away from it hitting that because I don't want any orange. Now I've got to wait until that's dry. Unfortunately, because of the filming equipment I've got, the colours that I'm seeing are not particularly the colours that you are seeing. I will show you photographs once that I've finished the filming. Because we work generally background to foreground in watercolours, we're going to concentrate on this one, getting the reds in this area, and then move on to that bit. And hopefully after that we'll get the shading in that will bring it all together and equalise the overall tonal value of the painting. I'm using a smaller brush now, a filbert, so we can be a bit more detailed and a bit more deliberate in the brush strokes that we are using, so we can control where we're putting things a bit easier. But there's no reason why you shouldn't continue to use a big brush and really push the paint around with the big brush if that's the way you want to do things. But I'm going to have a go at using this smaller filbert. Now we're going to look at a nice primary red. Now I've got a couple of primary reds. That one's a bit more on the orange side of things, and this one's a very vibrant red. So to start with, I think I'm going to go with that, and if I really need to do any more, I'll add that one. And there might be the tiniest touch of that in it, but I'm not going to put too much in it. So let's start with this. I believe this is a cadmium red, U version, but it is ever so slightly orange. So I'm just getting the paint activated. That's what you have to do with watercolours, and giving it to the right kind of strength. And the light is coming right there, so the darker areas are going to be away from that. So I'm going to make an attempt at, especially around this area, and I'm really applying this in a very, very light manner. Bring a bit of orange in there. Because around this area it's quite... This will dry a lot lighter as well. There's an area there that we want to cover. Bits of... Don't think I want to do too much there because that is fairly light. Let's see if we can get a bit of water in there to add a little bit of interest into it. And there you go, that's your first layer of red on. Now obviously you'd keep doing this, just dabbing a few bits out like that, picking out the lighter areas again. We've given that a few minutes to dry. What I want to concentrate on now is getting some of the colour into this, but we've got to be careful that this doesn't bleed, so I'm going to try and avoid that. You should really wait until that's fully dry before you move on to this, really, but I'll try and avoid it, but I bet I end up it going in, but we can fix that. So this one is a much more leaning towards the purpley red, so we need to get a light undertone of I think this is alizarin crimson. I think it is. And this is the colour. I'll show you the colour. That's it there. I believe it's alizarin crimson. I might be wrong, because there are several colours that are pretty much similar to that, and they'll all do for this kind of work. But I really want to get this very, very light, so I've wet it down a lot, and it's that undertonal. If you look on the painting, it's got a very pale undertone of pink, so we're going to try and get that in it. We don't want it to be overly dominant, no. So I might that will probably be as much as I need for the entire. Making sure that you don't hit the highlight area, although you can get rid of that. So I'm gonna avoid. I've done it. Don't matter. So try and make that a lot more lighter than it is. Right, so that's that undertone in it. And again, this is what watercolour's about, waiting for layers to dry out a bit. If you've got a heat gun to do that, then fine. But I mean, another way you can deal with this is have several paintings on the go at once, so that you're not wasting your time. It's time to start putting the strong primary red in this part of this apple. So that's what we're gonna have a go at now. So I'll pick up some red and dump it in my palette and try and get it to a consistency that it's not. Red is an extremely strong colour, so you've just got to make sure that it doesn't over dominate the part of the paint. This is mostly red anyway, but in paintings where there are other colours, you've got to be careful that it doesn't overdo it. And what I'm going to do is I'm twisting it now. I'm twisting the brush. So we're getting random bits like that, as the reference photo has. And I'm trying to follow the pattern of a curve. get a bit of, don't forget to be doing a little bit of work around here as well. Different types of brush strokes. I'll leave that for a while. And what I will do is make sure at this stage that we're not getting any leakage, because these two are starting to become two separate different types of colour sets. So make sure that that doesn't leak, even if we have to go right into there, because it's not really an issue that we're going to make that area fairly dark anyway, with a bit of a shadow coming round there once we're complete. I may put one more set of colours in it. It'll be a mixture of the red and the burgundy that we're going to be using for that, the alizarin crimson. Let's focus on this area now and build the colour up in that. So I'm going to get a fairly strong mix, but I'm going to make it quite dry, I think, and let this brush over in a very dry way. Just see how that goes. Needs to be a bit drier. I'm doing it like this to start with, but I'm going to feather it out a bit with water in a short while. It's just to try and give it some sort of shape and form. So in certain areas where you think, yeah, that could do with being blended a bit more, you blend that and try and keep the brush strokes as much as you possibly can. Sorry I'm going all quiet on you, but I'm just trying to concentrate on getting this layer down, and you might think, oh, it's a bit dark that, but it will mellow out once it's dried. Just for a little bit of texture while it's wet. Back to this section, we're going to put a little bit of this alizarin crimson in with a strong red, and that'll be its darkest part apart from the area that we're going to shade, and that will be that done apart from the stalk then. So let's crack on with that. So I've got some alizarin crimson mostly mixed. I don't want it to be too strong, so I'm going to knock it back with a bit of this primary red. It's just the lightest little bits in the darker areas that we're interested in. A bit odd fleck here, and a little bit there. Rather than them having very strong edges, I'm going to go around the edges and wreck them up a little bit. Take certain bits out. Feathering. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that now. I just want to maybe give the outer edge that's farthest away from us a bit less definition, because it blurs away that a bit. So I'm just using water to pull it out a bit. Because we don't want a very strong edge around that. So, like I said, all we need to do with that is put a stalk in, and when we're finished with this, I'll put the shadow area in there, although it hasn't got it on the original painting or photo. So back to this one. So let's continue on, and again I think I'm going to put some of this that I've mixed up in there, areas of that. In just random areas. And that will kind of key both of the apples together a little bit. So this particular apple will need a bit more darkening, because it is a lot darker, the apple here. So we're not that far away from end of painting. We just got the two stalks and a little bit of a tiny little bit of purple to go, I think, to go there. So let's have a look at this. And this is not this painting is not one of those floaty all colours all blend into one. It's a much more tight type of painting, this. So you could obviously do your apple in a very loose way, and do them all at once, all the colours, and let them blend in, and it would be very nice, that. But in this particular one, lighter than that, bit of lemony yellow. A few bits of leafy brown stuff. We're continuing to put a few bits of brown into the stalk area, and little bits of detail that make it obviously looking like a stalk. We'll move on to the next bit, where we're going to put the shaded section in the apple at the back to give it a bit of 3-dimension. This is a purpley colour. It might be mixed a little bit with the alizarin crimson, but it's a darker section, and I'm just working out now where it will cast from the forward apple, and remembering that it's a curve that it's going on, so it's going to fade away as it gets farther away from the foreground apple. So I keep adding more of that purple to it and gradiate that into the apple until you've got some kind of shade. Now, the original painting photo doesn't have that, but I just wanted to add that in. I'm also adding some little bits of dark sections into the rest of the painting, just to key it up a bit. I'll do a little bit of blending out by adding some water to it, so it doesn't have an hard edge. As we're getting farther away, it fades off into the rest of the colour, and that really is your picture done. So now that image is complete, that's my take on this week's theme, which is red. A nice couple of red apples both different reds, showcasing the beauty of red. So let's see your take on red, and I'll put a photo up next to show you the quality of the image because the video doesn't really show it, and here it is.